Hi, I'm Peyton Jernigan. I'm a sculptor in the Dallas area. I develop my own shapes with the aid of software. A lot of it I mentally think of ahead of time, similar to maybe traditional sculpting. I use the software to process it and create 2D flat pattern pieces that rivet together. So they're laser cut pieces that are brought together with a lot of time and assembly. They're put together and mounted in a bunch of different ways. I saw there was two here that are just completely by themselves. So I was thinking we start with those, and then I know you know it more.
True, I can kind of look and see what I've missed.
Yeah, there's always a straggler.
Oh yeah, no, that's part of the configuration line down the center.
Oh, is it?
I
Okay.
didn't wear it like a boa. That would suck.
It's kind of meditative, right? To
Yeah,
put them in.
what I mainly started
I work with it, I iterate on it, takes sometimes hours, days, weeks, months to kind of finalize shapes in the 3D environment. But almost always it's driven by that emotion. So it can either kind of come from two places. I'm either in a place in my life where I'm trying to do and express something, maybe something that's happened to me or conversations I've had. A lot of them are driven by conversations I recently had or maybe wish I had with certain people. And then kind of the other half of it comes from a place of trying to get just that cool shape made in real life. And then a lot of times I find that through that journey of just making something that I think is kind of an attractive form or an interesting shape, that during the process of the later steps, it kind of all pulls together and ends up being something pretty cool. Here's Cautious Optimism. So this is the very first one I made in 2023, December of 2023. Kind of see some of the resemblance, kind of as if it's broken at the top is what we're looking at. Cautious Optimism, the original one, is definitely the kind of the breakout piece. The one sitting over there definitely is a breakout piece. But it came from conversation between my wife and I. We'd been wondering if we wanted to have children. We've always thought, are we the kind of people to? Does it make sense for us? Because we're so involved in these passions. And after a lot of long conversations, we decided to. So that's where that kind of was ironically born from, was the idea that we kind of said, yep, we're going to do it. It's just a matter of when. During the assembly process, I was constantly frustrated with the labor that was involved, the confusion of finding the pieces and bringing it together. And there's all this chaos just internally. And it took so much dedication for myself. I wasn't familiar with it at all. I hadn't had to be that patient for really anything. And to me, it was really symbolic of us deciding to have children. Because to have children, you have to be patient. You have to change. You have to be a different person. So during that process, I really got to feel maybe some of the labor pains, so to speak, of having something new and different in your life. And that was December of 2023, and now it's March of 2025, and I've made almost 25, 30 sculptures between then and now, and I've gotten to go through that same process again, and it gets easier every time I go through it. Right now it's almost finished. We're tentatively calling it Broken Optimism. So this is kind of broken. The idea is that it's similar shape, but it's got this cut through it. The other one's connected. And some amount of it came out of a failure of the shape when I did it earlier. I tried to use a different technique, and that was at the beginning of this year, 2025. So very first few sculptures I did at the beginning of this year ended up not working at all. I had several failures back to back. So I was kind of feeling broken from it, and then I decided I can do my tried and true method and scale it up, and it would work without failure. And that's what kind of led to this piece, Broken Optimism. Kind of felt broken at the time. There's some other stuff going on personally where I was trying to get kind of my spark back for making art. And this is kind of that breakthrough piece that I've been working on for a while to get back to it. So yeah, soon it'll be finished. I'm excited for it. I think this is the largest one I've done. I think it's around 5,600 rivets or so. When I posted some of these on Reddit, I did it to the metalworking ones, right? And several people were like, I hope you used a pneumatic rivet gun for that versus a hand rivet gun for all of them, right? So it'd be really funny to get some like B-roll of me hand pulling these, which takes like 3 or 4 squeezes every time. The way I started with this sculpture technique really stemmed from not being able to, or not having the talent or the time to invest into traditional art form. I haven't really painted or drawn or sculpted in traditional senses. I really invested a lot of my time into using sculptures and 3D design to accomplish my expression. I really get a lot more expression when it is 3D. I've played around with 2D concepts where I use pen plotting with computer-generated toolpath, and it's not as, doesn't seem to scratch that same itch, but there's something just so satisfying about being able to have a finished piece, walk around it, see how it interacts with the physical world, and it's really more beautiful that way. One of the things I really hope that other people see when they look at my sculptures is to figure out how it was made. Because of the unique structure, it's almost organically made in some senses. So I'm really hopeful that I can kind of draw the newer generation of artists that maybe were the same spot I was in, where they didn't have the technical ability to, you know, use a brush or sculpt in the same ways, but they're able to easily use computers and technology. And I'm really hoping I can kind of draw them into this and say, hey, there's this kind of sweet spot that you can still express yourself without the need of being, you know, great at drawing or painting, those other things. So hopefully I can kind of inspire the next group and generation of people, and really anybody, to help kind of join and understand that there's a niche here for this kind of art. One of my long-term goals is to have my own shop dedicated to making art. They can support me in making my sculptures as I continue to grow, and I can support them as they continue to grow through their careers. I can show them the techniques I've figured out, and we can kind of work together to develop new techniques. I'm hopeful that we can get to a place where I can find that kind of commonality with other people and kind of grow together. Yeah. If you thought that wasn't enough, we have another, all of these. These are old prototype ones, and this is the current rivet we use, but we kept every single stem so far. So through years of working with metal, transforming it from flat to formed, I got to really practice and understand what 3D forms look like to me in my mind. So I can almost look at just about anything and understand what it would look like in its folded or flat state. I'll be inspired by things outside in the world, but a lot of the times, just like an artist would sketch iterations on paper of different things they want to maybe see or paint or draw later, I do the same thing through my mind and through the computer. So I mentioned before that a lot of the sculptures take days, weeks, many hours to get the shape. Even though I may be finished with it, I look at it and really contemplate it for a while. So a lot of times I'll take that kind of mental snapshot of what the computer's showing and say, oh, I know this will look this way, or should feel this way, or will literally maybe be impossible to assemble. That's one of the interesting things with this technique is I can paint myself in a quarter, so to speak, where I'm not able to rivet or assemble the sculpture because of too tight of a bend radius. So there's limitations that I have to deal with, just like any other medium of art. Grab those feelings, kind of transform them into those key things like you know, symmetry. There's all sorts of things you can do with it. Symmetry, continuity, fluidity, tangency, if something's smooth and continuous, and you'll see that there's a lot of experimentation that goes across. No two pieces are the same. I'm always trying different techniques. So if I have a certain memory or experience that could leverage the need for a different attempt or a different methodology, I'll always try to do that. I actually put this together first, roughly put it together, and the form was there without needing all the rivets. So by the end, you're putting in these rivets like we are now that are kind of unnecessary, but it is necessary because it helps, it keeps its final perfect form. There's this, what I call a scar that runs through it. It's a byproduct of the algorithm that generates this. So these scars I used to not like them, and I'd try to generate and regenerate so these wouldn't happen. But I've really embraced them just like kind of real scars. And instead of this sticking out being a problem, I can sit there and work on it and really try to get everything around it to help support it. So it is kind of one with the rest of the form. I'll normally spend a few hours kind of double checking and getting this tuned. You'll see that even with existing sculptures like Cautious Optimism, who's really stayed in her house for over a year, I'll still walk by it and kind of tweak it and look at it a little bit more and say, oh, I want this a little flatter or more curved. So that's what's great about sculpture in particular compared to kind of 2D or flat art, is you can look at it from so many different angles and get so many different perspectives on it, which really allows, like in something like this, to think of, my original shape is more designed when it's upright like this, but especially when we're working on it, we get to turn it and kind of interact with it in different ways. A lot of times as I'm finishing a piece, I've been working on it for hours. I've been thinking about it for weeks. I actually grow tired of it often, and it feels like I'm separated from it, but I use that time of building it as a meditative process. So whenever I'm finished with it, and I leave it and the lights go off, and that next morning, once it's finished, I get to look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And that's what I feel like is really when it's complete, even though you could see the form the entire time. And I'm really excited to kind of scale this up. That's one of my goals long-term, is to do these larger pieces, 5,000 plus rivets, really only.
Actually, no, this one is better.
So
this technique is better, yeah.
So in this scenario, I'm gonna look for this piece. I'll move him away from the sculpture. And then now my goal is to look for this shape in this mess of parts. Yeah, that's him.
Ah, you got him first.
So that's the difference between these two pieces. Now for the fun part of attaching it to the sculpture itself. I normally try to do as little as possible, try to put as few rivets in as possible. This is kind of a tough scenario because there's a lot of pieces that are coming together. This curvature in particular, this kind of whole area, is quite chaotic. So I need to make sure all the pieces are in the right orientations, because you can see this can go all over the place. So I need to make sure this is on the right level. And although I can put a rivet maybe through this location, that's not where it's supposed to go. It's probably going to go maybe lower down, and that's what will make that curve happen. So it gets kind of overwhelming because I'm not sure where the pieces are going to line up, or you just kind of have to trust that the software is doing what it should do. As long as I kind of am the minion of it and I just sit there and do as it says, then I'll be successful. I've been scaling the quantity of sculptures, the quantity of rivets. So each one has, is growing, and it becomes more and more challenging. So I keep finding myself, finding new ways to be patient and new ways to stay focused. and new ways to stay dedicated to what I'm doing. As I'm working on it, I'm kind of getting more familiar with the topology and where everything's supposed to be. And I've now figured out where this top one should go. So I kind of naturally will find the answer will kind of reveal itself as I'm working through it, because it's very chaotic, especially in times like this. Your fingers will hurt. You're pushing against yourself trying to make it all fit up. And then it's almost like you realize that the light at the end of the tunnel isn't a train heading for you. It's actually something good. So it takes quite a bit of imagination to make sure I understand that the curves are happening the way I expect them to. And something I'm always trying to do is watch the overall form. So there's a lot of flexibility in these sculptures, and it's got a place where it wants to be. And my goal is to try to find that form. And I'm working with the sculpture, it's working with me, because if it doesn't want to be in a particular position, it won't let it. It'll fight me every step of the way. So I kind of have to sit there and mold and shape the piece to make sure it's matching the original vision, and it'll actually be a successful piece. Otherwise, if I fought it the whole time, I would get tired and it wouldn't look right. And now, if you were to cut back to where it was before, it was almost fuzzy and unorganized in this area. And now, after just spending some time with it, it's now kind of come into focus of the order and the structure of what's going on here. And even when we just started, it was kind of making me anxious, I guess, of saying, is it going to come together? And you always just have to sit there and just say, just keep going, one rivet at a time, and it'll find its form ultimately. And it's only till the very, very end I get kind of two last decisions. It's how I mount the piece. So is it being put on a wood plate or base of some sort? Is it going to be put onto, is it going to be freestanding without the need of one? There's a lot of decisions to be made specifically with how it ends up being mounted. So it could be put on the wall, it could do all sorts of things. So I've recently started painting the pieces. I can kind of save those decisions for the end. So it's almost like the cherry on top is I get this whole creative process at the beginning, I get to kind of relax in the middle, let this process happen as I'm doing now. And then at the very end, I get to say, all right, what color do I want? What textures can I put to this? What complements the piece? And it's important that that happens at the end, in my opinion, because I can decide final piece in its 3D form will kind of speak to me and say, all right, this would look nicer with this color or that color or this texture. Versus in 3D, I could render those things and spend time doing that, but it's never the same as when it's actually in front of you, in front of your own eyes.
This is broken optimism. You can see how much smaller it is. It's only about half of it's done. This other side would come up just like the one we're working on. I was experimenting with a different technique. This is the matter of time technique. This is as well. And this is the very first matter of time I did.
That failure is part of it. I think that rings true with a lot of the process of making these pieces in the first place. I have a lot of the first sculptures that I've made that aren't really sellable, but they're great reminders to myself of kind of where I started and kind of that foundation of failure that I needed to get to where I am now, almost standing on the shoulders of my past failures in a positive way. Number one most important supporter is my wife. She helps me assemble sculptures. She gives me all sorts of opinions about the final shapes before we cut them out. She supported me through all the money spent developing the technique, and so supportive every step of the way. Probably second most important is Regal, the company I work for, my family-owned company. They've been so generous to allow me to use the equipment and on my free time to make these pieces and kind of test the ideas. I think one of the most important things I've learned through creating sculpture Most of it is internal, but communication is so important. Talking with other people, expressing your feelings, working with others to accomplish, and discuss, differences and commonalities and experiences that have been shared is so important. There's always going to be abstract sculpture in the world. So in that sense, I'm not unique. There's always people that are going to derive meaning in their sculptures. In that way, it doesn't make me very unique. The stories could be unique, but I really think what makes my process unique is kind of the innovation of trying to push and grow the medium as a whole. There's very few people that work with metal in the same way I do. And my hope is that I can continue to keep pushing the limits and keep growing the technique and ultimately sharing it with others, so I can kind of pave a new way. Maybe it's not so much metal as it's the form. So I think of the shapes quite often. There's been many late nights after assembling for hours and hours. I'll close my eyes and all I'll see are the geometric, hexagons, pentagons, septagons, octagons that are made by my sculpture pieces. So I feel like I kind of live it, sleep with it, dream about it pretty frequently. So I think there's always some intrinsic nature to want to make something that will last longer than you. A lot of my forms that I've made, I'm hoping will stand, the test of time. Although delicate and very light, the materials chosen and the finishes chosen should last much longer than me. So I think there's always that drive to have something that outlives you, to memorialize yourself or that experience long after you're gone. The connections are why the sculpture is there, why I stay dedicated to it while I'm building it, and really why it will stay after I'm gone as well.